Hey, B-Siders, welcome to another guest episode from my podcast. I am super excited to have a wonderful lineup of guests recently, and every guest is just beyond amazing. I can't say that enough. So I'm really excited to dive into this episode and introduce you to my guest for this episode. And yeah, let's get cracking, I would say. Without further ado, hello, Erika. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
You bet. So glad to be here.
Yes, and I believe it's a bit of an unearthly hour at this time. So
All right.
we're all still ready to go and rock and whatever else. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I know your story is a really great one to share, and I love that you've agreed to come on and say, share it with everybody because it's very inspiring and hopefully gives a few of my listeners and viewers a bit of strength to know that life doesn't always suck and it can get better and there is good stuff happening. So
you know what, there's good stuff even in the suck sometimes.
Yeah, it's just hard for some people to see that, I guess. Yeah, but we'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to quickly introduce you so people get a little bit of an idea what you do for a day job, which we're not going to really cover today. That's a whole nother thing. But you are a consultant for professional development, is that correct?
Yep.
And from what I can tell, you absolutely love what you do.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll put your details in the description anyway, so if anyone's curious, go and check it out. But we'll leave it at that. Now, let's dive right in. Really basic and easy questions to start off with. Music in general, how important is it to you?
Music is, for me and for my household, one of the threads that ties everything together. I use references to music in my work with professional development. I think music is a touch point that a lot of people can relate to, even if it is a style that they don't like. Some of the work that I do, we talk about satisfaction and I talk about neuroscience, and I know that's not what we're talking about today, but I take different songs to help digest that content and make it easier for people. So music is a way that we can take hard things and package them with emotional connections that are easier to process. But with my kids, music is part of, as I have 2 young children, and part of parenting for us was music in the middle of the night with kids who wouldn't sleep and all those things. And it, for me, is autopilot, is to go into music and song and to let my existence be driven by a soundtrack.
Oh, that sounds so cool. I got to remember that. That really sounds cool. Awesome. Now, we're here to talk about a specific song that means a hell of a lot to you and your family. And I'm gonna, leave the floor open to you to share that story because it's really powerful, I think. So please, would you please share it with us all?
Sure. The song that we're going to talk about is a song by Gabe Dixon, and it came out in 2011. I had been a Gabe Dixon fan since graduate school. A good friend of mine, I remember the day that someone introduced me to him. We were walking, doing a campus tour as part of one of our classes in higher ed administration, and I was frustrated with something, and she mentioned this song by Gabe Dixon, a different song called All Will Be Well. And that became my soundtrack for grad school because there was a lot happening in my life at that time. So Gabe Dixon really has been my soundtrack twice. So that became my soundtrack. And fast forward 2011, I was in the fall of 2011, my now husband and I were engaged, and I was on a trip for work thinking about music for our wedding and decided to look him up, which was really interesting because I don't know that it had crossed my mind to pay attention to what was coming out. I was in a busy time of my life. So just looked him up, and he had a new song that came out, and it's called My Favorite. And it is a faster song than most people would pick for a first dance for a wedding. But as soon as I heard it, I thought, this is how I want to begin my life with Dan in that way. So we decided to use that song, My Favorite, which is, again, not a slow song. We took it to our dance lessons. We did, I don't know if you all do that, but here in the States, we do a lot of dance lessons before weddings and different things. So we took it to our dance lessons to learn how to do a dance. It's a rumba. We learned, all the things. And it's this song about the present and the potential of what's to come. And that's what I loved about it. I'm very lyrically centered. And so the words really stuck out to me. And I loved the message and how that represented what it meant to be beginning a marriage and a life together. We did our dance. It was great. We both, my husband stepped on my giant dress and ripped it in the middle of our dance, which was fine. And the best picture from my wedding, it's up here in my office, is a picture of me laughing so hard because he's got big feet and I had a big dress. And that's, so this song, a lot of just delight happened in this song in the spring of 2012 when we got married. And then to help him prepare for our wedding, or because I was a sentimental fiance or whatever, I'd made a CD of the music we were using because music is so important to me. I was, everyone has certain things when they get married that they pay a lot of attention to. For us, music was one of the key things. And so I made a CD of all the different songs that different people were walking into, and then that song and some other things that we knew would be played and all that. So that song, I had a CD for him and a CD for me, and they just stayed in our car. And so I had that CD in my car for it's actually still in my car. It'll be our 10-year wedding anniversary in a few weeks. And so that CD's been there for 10 years. And then we had kids, and then life got really hard. We had been navigating some health complications with Dana. We didn't really know what was going on. And it started with him being tired, and then tired went to exhausted, and he was sleeping as much as our 1-year-old. And then he was sleeping as much as our newborn. So we had 2 tiny babies, and we finally got the right testing to figure out that Dan had diffuse large B-cell aggressive non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it had taken so long for them to find it that it had filled his torso. So he was full of cancer. This was not news that anyone wants, right? His dad passed away from the same cancer just a few weeks after we started dating. So when we found out that he had been diagnosed with this, it was a lot of things all at once, because our previous experience with it ended in his dad passing away. He went to the hospital so the primary tumor was in his spine, and it was eroding one of his vertebrae. So he was in excruciating pain. And we went to the emergency room because I worked at the time at a school of pharmacy and had really great friends that are still my friends. And when we found out what was going on, just with the initial diagnosis before we'd met with an oncologist or anything, someone said, you have to get him in for pain management. Like, this isn't something you're going to be able to navigate. So just take him in. So we got him into the hospital, and we'd had, leading up to this, just a couple of days of constant emotional exhaustion. And the day before we took him to the hospital, we had plans with these same friends to go apple picking, because we lived in the Midwest at the time, and it was fall, and this is what you do. And we took our kids to go apple picking, and I had a 3.5-month-old and a 20-month-old. That's how old our kids were at the time.
Wow.
And he wanted so hard for things to just be normal for one more day before he went to the hospital. And that's what he said. He said, let's just try to have this day that we plan on. So the emotional weight of a person you love trying to just have a normal day for your family is a lot, and all these things. And I hadn't slept really much. And so we get him to the hospital. We spend something like 14 hours in the emergency room waiting for him to get admitted. And he finally gets admitted. I had great support in St. Louis, where we lived at the time. And so my kids were home, everyone was taken care of. And as I was driving home, after what felt like the longest couple of days of just being stuck, not even really being able to process fully the scope of what was happening. It was a Sunday night and I was driving home on the interstate in St. Louis. And because that CD was in my car, this song by Gabe Dixon, which is our first dance song, started playing. And I have a vocal performance background, so I sing along. I sing along to all music, which means I pay attention to the lyric, A, because I have to sing it, but B, then my brain starts to think about the words. There are so many songs that I love because of what they say that people have never noticed the words to, because it's, got a good beat or a fun tune or whatever. So I'm driving down the interstate singing along to this song, and I had to pull over. I had to pull over because I was sobbing, and it was the first substantial emotional relief that I had had since this moment, because I was trying to keep everything together because it wasn't my turn, right? In relationships, sometimes you take turns having breakdowns, and it wasn't my turn to have, all the things. So I was alone in my car, and I just pulled over on the side of the road and started bawling because, again, these lyrics are about not just that you're my favorite person, but my favorite life is the life that we have built, and my favorite day is the next one to come, and all these things. And it's about so much of the future. And I was overwhelmed by the idea that I wasn't going to have that future. And I just sat and sobbed and listened to this song and thought about my dress ripping and thought about all these things and thought about this song being this catalyst for what our life was supposed to be. And then the reality that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. By the time, the next couple of days, I ended up listening to that song pretty much on repeat. And my kids, my older daughter knew, my 3.5-month-old didn't know, couldn't talk, but my older daughter could ask for it. She knew it was number 8 on the CD soundtrack or on the CD in my car. So we would listen to number 8 and we would sing, and I would that song became for me my prayer. Really, I am a faith-based person, but it was sort of this whispered prayer into the universe of, let this be true, right? Let this be what it was meant to be for us. So Dan is in pain management. And then over the next couple of days, his oncologist, we finally met with an oncologist, and he was pretty grim and said, I don't know what your plans were for tomorrow, but their chemo, you're going into emergency chemo. There's no time to wait. Your torso is full of cancer. And he looked at me and he said, you have small children, right? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, you need to be mentally prepared to be a single parent. And that was just a lot to process. But, he had to be honest. That's part of healthcare, is being honest, and not everyone's bedside manner is gentle with honesty. And that's okay. That wasn't his job to be gentle with truth. His job was to make sure I had that truth. And, but throughout the time, that song just became something that I used as the words when I couldn't come up with any, as I was, trying to usher in the hope of remission and the hope of the life that we had planned and all these things. So Dan went through treatment, and ultimately the chemo was successful. So I feel like that's an important part of the story, is he's still here.
Very important.
And so we got through that. And that was in the fall into winter. And I sent a message to Gabe Dixon. I found his contact information through his recording company. And I sent this email and I said, I think one of the hardest parts about being an artist is that you don't always know the impact of what you're doing. A lot of people, whatever art form it is, they do the thing that they love because they love it, and they hope that it impacts someone. So I wanted him to know the impact and the magnitude of this song on us. And I remember laughing as I wrote, did you know it is a rumba? Because that's what we learned during dance lessons. And, all these things. It was very honest and emotionally charged, with so much gratitude for this song that became such a piece of this hard time in my life. And so I sent him a note and I said, if you get a chance, I would like to do something special for Dan. This is a strange request, but if you wouldn't mind. And I also said, if you don't do this, I won't take it personal, because I was asking a person who was, this is a person who is famous and has a touring career and a life and, whatever, all these things. And it was just some random woman in an email asking for help. I think I sent a picture also of him, of Dan, the same picture that somebody else. I think I sent that picture too. I just said, this is what happened when we danced your song. But I said, would you mind writing out the lyrics? What I would love to do is frame a copy of those lyrics written by you, if you're willing to do it, to give to Dan for our anniversary. And he got that message and he wrote them out. And there is a frame that sits on the piano in our home, still now, of the lyrics of that song. And so I walk past every day this song that really still is my prayer for my life with my husband, because he's the person that I picked. And this song was such a perfect lyrical representation of all the energy that sat at the beginning. And to me, every day is the beginning of the next, right? So we will have been married for 10 years here shortly, but today is still the beginning of today. And today is still the beginning of this, component and all those things. And so I'm grateful to still have that song in my car and in my CD player. And I'm getting ready to probably sell my car. My car is 17 years old. And the fact that it even has a CD player and that's still working is something, but that CD will get transferred into the new vehicle, because that collection of songs and listening to your children sing songs that were part of your wedding has its own kind of charm if you're a music oriented person. But each morning I pass this gift that was given to me in the form of, yes, these lyrics that Gabe Dixon willingly wrote out and mailed to me, with a little note on top of it. And so that note is there as well. But also that song in and of itself was such a gift for me and for my family at a time when there was some suck going on, right? To go back to how we started this call, but in the middle of it was still the reminder of hope. And that for me was really important, was that this was our plan and I'm going to cling to this life raft while I need it and hope that it can continue to be my plan. And so for us, the story does end with a new chapter that still has Dan, and that's pretty great. But the magnitude of that song and singing along to that song on the drive home from the emergency room, or when he'd finally been admitted, all the lyrics just tasted different in my mouth. And they came out different. And it really was this sort of sitting on the side of the road cry for hope. And then it just carried us through.
I think we need to just take a few seconds to digest this story, okay? I'm a little bit lost for words, because just listening to your story, and thankfully your husband's okay. I mean, that's the greatest gift that came out of it all. And to me, it seems the second biggest gift is that song and having that artist in your life. It's just absolutely amazing. And yeah, I mean, for me, just listening, and then I thought about, the artist, I think he probably walked away going, wow, I've literally indirectly probably helped saving not just one life, but 2 or 4, if you want to take your children into the concept, that is, for me, mind-blowing. I find that so amazing, that power it has, it's just,
it was a key component to staying grounded at a time when life was really asking all of us to kind of lose it. Which is what life does, right? Life invites us to lose it. And what we have to do is figure out how to keep it together, or to go ahead and lose it in a way that is not harmful. Because sometimes you just have to lose it. And that can look different for different people. And I would say that I have different songs that I like to play when I'm losing it too. We all do. And there's a really great song that U2 sings, called Stuck in a Moment. And that song, I think, is one of those really great reminders that you can feel that thing that you need to feel. but
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
go on, then you move through it. And so I love that song as a reminder that you can feel the feelings, but you can't sit in them.
Yeah. Hugely important.
And I think that that's really great. Again, I use my favorite game used to be when I was in college and grad school, and still sometimes when I travel with my husband, I dreamed once of being the musical director for films and doing soundtracks and all these things. And so I love to set up scenarios, random scenarios, seemingly random scenarios, and say, what song should be playing in the background? Like, what would be the best song to play in this background? And
oh gosh,
so that was a game we used to play. Was like, what song would you pick in the middle of this movie? And there would always be these questions of like, is it right before something good is happening, or right before something bad, or all these things. So I love thinking about the role that music plays in truly all things. And have had amazing opportunities to have music impact me in really powerful ways. And, so this story is certainly one of those moments, but I'm a huge listener to all the words.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, lyrics for me are very important too. I mean, that's how I learned English.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. I've literally sat there for so many nights on my own in my room, picking a German to English dictionary and picking my favorite songs and just going line by line, translating them. That's how I learned the language. And, it helped me so much get more fluent than others at my level. So, yeah, lyrics are amazing. And, yeah, I mean, I am one of those people, sometimes I just want the beat.
Sure.
I just need it sometimes, but lyrics, yeah. Absolutely. So I get where you're coming from for sure.
And I will say there are some really good songs that have really good energy and a really good beat or a really good, musical vibe that have terrible lyrics. And I still listen to those too. I mean, there are some songs where I'm like, these are not words that I want to sing along to, but I want my body to feel this energy. So I will just listen.
Yeah. Well, you can't always, yeah, of course.
Is that the right way to put that? Yes. The lyrics are not, overly complimentary to women or positive in certain ways, but the music still feels good, right? Like, I think that that's, for some of us, we really do physically respond to music. And there's all the research around neurologically what happens with music, and the fact that we can work with patients who have cognitive disabilities through music. And you can take patients who have late stage Alzheimer's, who have very little recognition of the people around them, but they can play music from other times in their life and they can immediately connect to that. So I think music as a power is just something that you look at from the evolution of humans. I mean, music has always been.
Yeah.
That's the sort of the magic and the beauty of it, right? Is it's always been.
Yeah, exactly. When you just talked about, people with Alzheimer's and along those lines, I remember watching a clip not so long ago of this elderly woman. And she used to be a ballet dancer. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip, but she couldn't remember much. But they gave her a Walkman, not an iPod, a Walkman. I got to say that. And they put on a classical song she used to dance to. And she literally started dancing in her chair. She remembered the choreography to it. And that to me is such a good representation of the power of music. That we don't forget. Yeah. So that's what came to mind when you said, our brains are amazing at what they remember.
So. Well, and it's how we teach a lot, right? We learn musically a lot through my kids sing songs about sight words that they have to spell, and I can now sing the spelling version of all the colors and all these things. We create, and I think for people who aren't part of that experience or don't do a lot in child development. My undergraduate degree is in early childhood education. So I was a preschool teacher and wrote preschool curriculum. But I think it seems fun to sing songs to learn. And so that's why we do it. But from a cognitive standpoint, there is better retention when we use music in those ways, because it just impacts us differently.
Yeah. That definitely feels right. I obviously don't have that knowledge, but you know, when someone like you explains that to me, I go, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. It does, you know, even though I don't understand it all, but yeah, I sort of feel like totally true. Now, do you have like a song or songs? Because I know one song is always very hard, that you sort of use, apart from the one we just talked about, but that sort of describes your life and or your business. And
Sure.
I know that question seems to throw people sometimes.
So I cheat whenever anyone asks me to pick favorites because I'm terrible at it. And it's so funny that the song that we're here to talk about is called My Favorite, a singular thing. And Dan is my favorite person. Yeah. But in general, I can't pick a favorite food. I always cheat with that too. I either pick ice cream, which has a lot of options, right? You can pick a lot of things under the ice cream umbrella, or salad, because you can also have a lot of things under the salad umbrella. And I recently learned that people make cookie salads. Like you can even have dessert salad beyond fruit salad. So I know, isn't that wild? So picking a favorite song is tricky because I think I'm so impacted by all of them that I'm like, oh, but these words are good and these words are good. But one of the songs I really like and was introduced to by one of my students. So along with my consulting work, I'm a faculty member for a university here in the States. And I offered this extra credit that was tied to music because I love music, and students are a great way to learn about new music. So I offered an extra credit assignment during finals week in the fall semester and said, what's a song that helps you keep going? Because I thought I'll get some really great answers. And some of the students, I don't think, thought I was going to play the song and listen to it and then write to them back, commenting on the song. Oh, I've never heard this, and these lyrics were really interesting, or I've never heard this, because some of them picked songs that I don't think they wanted to talk to their faculty member about based on the, like, going back to that comment we made about how the energy is really good, but maybe the lyrics are not good.
Yep.
Yeah. So a little bit of that happened, but there was a student who sent me this song that I had never heard before by Judah and the Lion. And I really like them because I think it's really fascinating when you can turn a banjo into an instrument that belongs in like non-folk music. I love folk music, but they use a banjo in more traditional pop music. So I think that's cool. But it's called Going to Mars. And because I'm a lyric person, and because my business is rooted in authenticity, the song is about the idea that you don't need to shoot for the moon because you're going to Mars. It is about your own personal direction and pursuit. And so I love that song. I love that song. And I love the way the tune plays out too. So I like the lyric, and I like the music as well. But it's just this really great reminder that you have permission to go where you're going, even if everyone around you is going to the moon. And I told the student, I was like, this might be my new favorite song. I'm going to use this in my work. When I emailed him back, I told him all about this. He responded to that email, even though it was finals week and he certainly had other things to do. And he said, my family loves this song so much. My sister, who's pregnant, put the lyrics of it on her baby's nursery. And he sent me a picture of his sister's nursery. And I was just so like, another person who loves lyrics like I do. And this song had impacted them in such a way. It was just a really neat, like, unique connection that I had with this student to say, I love this lyric. And he said, oh, my whole family does. This is why we love it. So wow. Again, music is this thing that connects us in interesting ways. And so that is a song that I love. And there's a song that is old that I love by Jimmy Buffett called Fruitcakes. And my dad was killed when I was 21 years old. But prior to that, whenever we would take trips, this was the song that my dad would play at the beginning. My dad loved Jimmy Buffett. And so this was the song he would play at the beginning of family road trips, was Fruitcakes. And it is about the absurdity in all of us. And so I love that song as a reminder of my dad, and listening to my dad, who was not musically talented, sing to it, but also that reminder that I was getting that I didn't realize was going to have such an impact in the type of work that I do now. But this song about how we all just are who we are, and that's who we ought to be. So I love that song, and I've started playing it at the beginning of family road trips with my own kids. We have a couple of other songs too, but that one is in the mix. And so when we start off, my kids know about singing about fruitcakes. And so
Yeah, I really can tell that you love authenticity a lot.
I do.
Yeah. And didn't you actually name your playlist that?
I do. I have an authenticity playlist. Well, my company is called Strategically Authentic. So I love authenticity so much that it is in my branding. Um, and I often say to crowds of people during keynotes, if you can't be yourself, what's the point?
Mm.
And so I do have an authenticity playlist that is all songs that are about um, who you are. And so there is another song that is a Spanish song, and in the lyric, it talks about I I wouldn't rather be anybody else but me. Like, and there are a number of songs that come out with this.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with being confident? There are all these songs that are like anthems for authenticity, and there are really different ways that you can have anthems for authenticity, because you have these high energy songs, and then also in that mix for me is Carole King. Again, I love folk music. So Carole King has a song called Beautiful, and it's about getting up every morning and showing the world who you are and what you've got in your heart. And so you can build an entire playlist around
Mm-hmm.
showing up as yourself, and it can be so many different genres that are represented. And for me, that's really useful because, again, I talk about music in my work because it's part of who I am, and I speak about authenticity. So it shows up in my work anyway,
Yeah.
but being able to take all these different performers and lyrics and giving them a completely different life through this lens of showing up as yourself and the permission that we all have to exist as who we are is something that I just love to do.
Oh, I love this. So cool. Yeah, I could listen to you talk for probably not a half an hour because it's super interesting what you share, and also obviously the tidbits about how our brain works and everything, but that would probably go a bit too far for today's episode. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2.
There you go. I
There
can
you
tell you
go.
all the songs about satisfaction.
Yeah. The first one comes to mind. Oh, it's an obvious one, isn't it?
Sure. That's
Yeah.
actually, I had give a keynote on the neuroscience of satisfaction. And I jokingly say at the beginning of all of it that Mick Jagger and Keith Richards just needed neuroscience. That's all the Rolling Stones needed was
Yes.
neuroscience, and they would have found that
They
satisfaction.
would have had it, yes. Oh dear. Well, maybe we can get you in touch with them and help them
Oh,
out if they
geez. I'll
haven't
just write
found it
another
yet.
letter and send it out into the universe and
Yes.
see what happens.
You were lucky once. Why not twice? Well, I think we covered a lot, and it's been good, and it's been, really food for thought, I think, for a lot of areas in our life. So again, thank you very much for sharing your story and your take on music and giving people a bit of hope. I think that if they can find their song, it can really help them, not just in that phase but through their whole life. And that is probably something so simple sometimes that we need. Instead of looking for the complicated, keep it simple and listen to your favorite
Sometimes
thing.
the simple solution is the most effective.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes, I think that's it. You've already told me about, your authenticity playlist, and that's kind of, your favorite thing. So is there anything else that comes to mind that you might want to share? Otherwise, we can probably wrap it up.
No, if anyone ever wants to get insight into my authenticity playlist, though, they can come find me and I will share all the songs. Because I do love that. I love the idea that we create musical reminders for ourselves. And so a playlist of anything, some people have a study playlist or a marathon training playlist for people who do marathons. I do not do that. But we all have, but I cheer for marathon runners. I like doing that part.
Yep.
We all have messages that we need to remember. And music is one of the best ways to keep them connected, even when things are hard or scary or overwhelming. And so using that sort of musical life raft is something I think a lot of people can benefit from and don't realize the impact that it's having. And it's okay if you don't know that it's helping you, as long as you just feel a little bit of a lift for that moment. So, that's for me, that's one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, is a collection of songs that help keep you afloat.
I love the lifeboat thing. That's a cool one. I got to remember that one. Right. Well, I think these are really cool words to end this episode with. Thanks again for coming on. All your contact details will be shared with my audience. So if anyone wants the playlist, they can contact you. If anyone wants to get in touch or find out more about you, it's all going to be there too. Otherwise, yes, another one done. God, it's always so much fun and time goes so quickly. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on again. Super grateful. And yeah,
Absolutely.
All right, B-siders, we'll wrap it up and say goodbye for another episode. As always, get in touch if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll talk and see you in the next episode. Keep on dancing and keep on rocking. And until then, bye.